Katrina, I think, has made a separate point about would you recommend starting a blog to help build your profile as a writer? And I've been watching, a number of former students and so on, how they've sort of gone about approaching this problem. And I think the answer is, even the most Luddite of sort of Fleet Street papers, I think these days have adjusted to the online phenomenon. So certainly editors are expecting, I think, especially young people, to have an internet presence. Especially if they're aspiring writers, perhaps. It's a logical question. What have you got online? Where can I see what you've done? And so on. Of course, starting a blog or putting material online, and as I'm implying, I think nowadays that means that not having a web presence is a disadvantage. But it's a double-edged sword too, because it does mean that what you put online really has to be an effective showcase for your writing. And I've certainly seen examples where, somebody will send you through a link, and it could have the completely negative effect that if it's full of errors, if it's badly constructed, and if it really isn't a very good piece of writing, then obviously it's almost a sort of double attack, because an editor's looking at you and saying, my goodness, this is something they're proud of, and it's rubbish. So I think the answer is, yes, having a web presence is probably crucial to establish a showcase in which you can, use to market yourself and sort of push people in your direction, show them what you're capable of. But that won't work if what you're actually showing them is of a poor quality. So I'd be very careful about sort of what you post online and what you how you proof that and everything else. Stephanie's asked an age-old question of do you send something in straight away, or do you ask if they'd be interested? Again, that's all part of the individual sort of your technique and the way that you develop it with individual editors. Obviously, in the early days, it tends to be easier to at least have produced something that you can show them, because then at least, it's very unlikely that editors are going to commission work from somebody they don't know, because then they might feel that they've committed to something. So I think if it's your first contact with somebody, show them what you've done with a covering letter. You can do it by contacting them with an email first and saying, would they be interested in seeing and describe what it is, and do the pitch that way, but have the pitch ready to send, that they can see the finished thing and actually confirm then if they'd be interested in taking that. I do not think, if they don't know you, that they will be prepared normally to commit to buying something that they've just seen your outline for, when they don't know how well you're going to be putting it together. Kellyanne's mentioned Kellyanne's mentioned an issue about writing star dating to the internet, which I think is just, I'm not going into detail because it's too broad an area to explore tonight, but it's interesting that I think in terms of diversity of writing and the overlap between different types of writing, we're seeing more of both of those than ever before. Bob is mentioning a question about can you publish stuff that's been published previously. The only thing you've got to watch in your own blog, of course, is infringing copyright. And copyright can hold a few surprises. And remember that even your colleagues will sometimes, because they're in the same business as you are, feel quite sensitive about it. So Dale's absolutely right. There are copyright issues with posting published articles on your blog. There may even be copyright issues with regard to a friend. And normally, and some of you may be aware of this, that I have and try to, although we all make mistakes, contact even sort of friends, as a courtesy, if nothing else, but also to resolve this issue, to ask them before actually posting any pictures on a blog in that way. And we had an interesting issue raised the other day where I found, for example, a picture of one of my former distance learning students that is now a sort of freelance cameraman, and I thought that would be a nice. It's sort of on his site and would make a good illustration for a blog piece which was talking about his work, and fairly quickly got I did ask, was it okay to use that? Although I asked at the same time posting it, and very shortly afterwards got a sort of email back sort of just pointing out that it wasn't his copyright, and the photographer who'd taken it was very sensitive about, I mean, quite happy for it to be used free, but complete with full credit, the right sort of caption, and a link to their site. So from that point of view, I think we've just got to be quite sensitive. We're all a little bit like, it's like original artists, isn't it? We're very sensitive about how our work's used, and if we've got any power over protecting it or people's use of it, then we should. The link is one option, Katerina, because it's obviously taking somebody to the original website on which it's published, and that's obviously increasing their web visitors, and they're seeing it in the context of the original copyright. So that's not a problem.